If you're trying to make the fantasy playoffs, or if you're currently in the fantasy playoffs and you're after that championship, you turn to the right episode. We're going to talk about a quarterback who's about to bounce back big from a bad week last week. We got two veterans, a running back and a wide receiver who are must starts. I don't care about the matchup, and a tight end who is a lock for a top 10 week at tight end. Let's go ahead and get to it right now. What up, Rival Fantasy community? I'm your host, Neil Maligno, and you are tuned in to Not So Obvious Locks of Week 14. You're asking yourself, what are not so obvious locks? I'm glad you asked, because they are players who are not ranked inside the consensus top 10 this week, but have the potential upside to finish there. Always remember that your roster decisions ultimately belong to you, so use my advice as a tool, but you make that final decision. I keep these episodes quick hitting. If you want longer or interactive content, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notifications, and catch our weekly live streams. Now let's jump into the players. Joshua Dobbs is facing off versus a Raiders defense that has played well at times, but has also been exposed many times this season. Dobbs had a really bad week 12 versus the Bears, but I'm surprised how many people are actually letting that game define him. After a week 13 bye, I actually believe Dobbs will be inspired to remind fans who he is in week 14. Throw in the return of a healthy Justin Jefferson, who hasn't played a game since week 5, and this one could be a great game for Dobbs. David Montgomery's only bad game this season was when he had less than 12 carries, and that only happened one time this season. Montgomery played the Bears in week 11 and had almost 100 total yards and 1 touchdown. In week 13 versus Saints, Montgomery had 50 plus yards and a touchdown, which put him at top 15 at running back. I'm expecting him to perform similar to his first time around versus the Bears, so a strong week 14 is in the plans. DeAndre Hopkins is currently wide receiver 22 in PPR scoring on the season, which, considering how things have gone for the Titans so far, that's actually pretty good. They are last place in the AFC South with only 4 wins. Tannehill went down. Rookie quarterback Levis is starting. Players like Hopkins and Henry, outside of a bad few games, have still found success in fantasy football. Hopkins plays the Dolphins in week 14, and while their defense is decent, especially with Ramsey back, elite wide receivers still find a way to produce against the Dolphins. Gerald Everett faces off versus a Broncos defense in week 14 that gives every tight end it faces at least a few receptions, 50 yards receiving, solid fantasy points, and that's the floor. Throw at them an offense led by Justin Herbert with all the weapons all over the field. Everett will not be the Dolphins' defense's focus. He has a great chance to score in this game. All things considered, Everett is in for a big week 14 in fantasy. Now, if you want more fantasy football advice from Rival Fantasy Sports, subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn on your notifications, you'll get new content plus our live streams. Now, one notification, we do normally go live every Sunday at 11:30 a.m. We're actually going live Saturday at 10:30 p.m. Eastern this week. We'll also probably be doing it next week as well, just some schedule changes here on our end. We'll still get that live stream start sitting free, though. It's really important to us. If you prefer audio only, you can, of course, subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You won't get the lives, but you'll get everything else. Follow us on social for all the latest app updates, promos, up-to-the-minute news and sports on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok at Rival Fantasy. And, of course, download the Rival Fantasy app or just visit rivalfantasy.com, whichever is your preference. Play season-long sports there, but we also have daily games like challenges, bingo, tons of stuff to do. So even if you're not in the fantasy playoffs, you didn't win the championship, you can still win. You can still have a lot of fun and compete against your friends, family, coworkers, whatever it is. You can even share the challenges on social. So it's a lot of fun. Go check it out. Check the link in the description. You'll actually get a deposit match up to $200 on your first deposit, plus a $25 free voucher. You can't lose with that. Go ahead, check it out, rivalfantasy.com, or download the app today. That is it for Not So Obvious Locks of the Week for week 14. I'm out.